That's going to be hard.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Little Bit of Woo Woo. I'm your host, Jill Thomas. This show is all about all things woo woo. I started off as a little bit of woo woo, and it's starting to become a lot of woo woo, which is fine. I also want to help people become successful in the healing arts. So occasionally you're going to see little tips and tools on how to do this, how to make money doing this, because I know anybody watching this is probably pretty intuitive anyway, because that's the kind of things you'd be interested in. So I'm super excited to have this week's guest on, Jackleen Holton. She's going to talk about the year of the dragon and other astrological things that are part of 2024, which I'm super excited about because astrology part always gets me tripped up. It's just not, there's too much math. So Jackleen Holton has been working professionally as an astrologer and intuitive counselor for 26 years. Her career began at the legendary, and it is legendary, guys, because people ask me about this all the time, Phoenix Phyre Books in Encinitas, which is gone, Encinitas, California. And her study of astrology began many years before that. She currently works as an astrological life coach. That's a lot to say. Astrological life coach, supporting clients all over the world. And little known fact, guys, I think she was the second reader I'd ever had. I think somebody else at that same store had that was the first reading, but she was like the second. So I was so excited to have her on the show. Welcome, Jackleen.
Well, thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you talk about the year of the dragon, because this is going to air on Thursday. This is going to be aired just a few days before the actual day. So tell us what it is for the 2 or 3 people on the planet who don't know what this is.
Okay. Well, you know how you flip that calendar page on January 1st and it's, you're counting down to basically a big nothing because it's a flip of a calendar page. It's a fiscal year. We're celebrating a fiscal year or some, arbitrary year. Whereas with the Lunar New Year, the character of the year actually changes. And that's when people say, mean when they say, oh, that was a hard year, that was a really exciting year. A lot happened in my love life that year, but my business sucked or whatever, right? Or vice versa. So these years have different characters. And we are coming into the year with arguably the most character of any of the Chinese lunar zodiac signs. There are 12 signs, just like in the Western astrological wheel. So you could almost lay that on top of the Western wheel and correspond, say, Aries to rat. Dragon would be corresponded to Leo, and it's probably the truest match of any of the signs with the Western sign. So it's very dramatic. It's really appearance conscious. It's kind of egotistical a little bit. And so it corresponds very well to that. Some people will argue, oh no, that's Sagittarius. I'm thinking you can pretty much look at the fire signs, and dragon is a fire sign. Fire signs, by the way, are the years that we love to have our presidential election. So we always love the drama. Fire signs are dramatic and flashy, and some of them a bit crazy. And you would think that the dragon would be the most destructive of the fire signs, but no, that's the monkey. We'll talk about that.
Wow, interesting.
But the dragon, this is the year of the dragon. And what you want to do is be prepared for whatever it is that you're hoping for, whatever your big dream is. Be prepared to make that pitch, to have that interview. It might be in an elevator, hence the words elevator pitch or audition or whatever. Your big break could come this year, but you want to be prepared. Maybe be prepared for 2 or 3 big breaks, because this is the luckiest year.
Interesting. I've been on your mailing list for like 100 years, even though you've probably only done it for 20. And I've heard you refer to this calendar New Year as the Mickey Mouse New Year, January 1st.
I don't want Disney to sue me, so I'm not going to say that anymore.
I think we're allowed to now. Didn't they lose
I'm joking. I'm sort of joking about that.
I can't use the picture, but
it's super less. So
that's true.
I'm just going to call it the the calendar New Year. I'll think of another cute way to say it so they don't sue me. But but yeah, it's sort of this. I'd love to go to Disneyland. In fact, here's a plug for Disney. Go to Disneyland for the New Year, right? I think that would be the perfect combination of the two. In fact, one of my clients a couple of years ago was like, "Yeah, I went to Disneyland for that New Year." I was like, "Perfect."
It's like fun. Yeah, I love it. I love the way you describe it though, because there's something interesting. January 1st. nothing happens. It's snow on the ground in most of the country. Nobody's going to be actually making changes. People start to come in for changes in February.
They're hungover. They're hungover before, right? You know.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell us, you kind of started to say, but let's see what kinds of things you should be doing in the dragon year that are different than, let's say, what was going on last year. What's
the rabbit year? We are still, as we speak today, we're still in the rabbit year. And I like to call this the tail end of the rabbit year. And you know what comes out the tail end of most things, right? And that's usually what happens at the end of any year is like it say, here's a year in review. Here's all the crap you had to put up with and deal with over the last year. Here are all the feelings that you tried to push down over the last year. And a lot of people have been calling me because we're in the tail end of that rabbit year. The rabbit is more timid. It's also a lucky sign, but not as lucky as the dragon. It's timid. It was kind of a nice year for introverts like myself. We were able to introvert like we do and still, get some of the benefits of the year, of the luck and, people coming to us and, that sort of thing, the business. So it was good in that respect, but it was also sort of a behind the scenes, preparing year. So as I tell people, these fire years, these basically yang years, which are every other year, the even numbered years, are generally more the on-stage years where we get up on stage, we talk, we, make our best case. You want to focus on your appearance, whatever it takes to feel confident. The dragon is very confident. It can be a little bit blustery. It can be a little bit egotistical, but pretty much it has a healthy amount of self-interest too. So that's good. It's not going to burn everything down. You see the dragon, on House of Dragons or Game of Thrones. It's not going to necessarily be like that. It can be. It has that in reserve. So there is that element of it that is powerful, but it's lucky and it's synchronistic, and you're going to be in the right place at the right time. That's what you want to put out for the dragon year. One of the things that people often ask is, am I going to be lucky in the dragon year? What about my sign, right? I'm a rooster, yep. I'm a dog, I'm a pig, whatever. Am I going to be lucky in the dragon year? And the answer is yes. Everyone's going to be lucky in the dragon year, but here's what we have to do. We have to be the dragon. So that for a lot of us, it's going to be about expanding our comfort zone, getting out of, here I am doing a podcast when of course I'd rather be writing something to post to my clients, right? Because that's my comfort zone. I can write really well and get that out. I'm an old hat at sending out the emails, but yeah, you need to be on more podcasts this year. You need to be on more stages. You need to present, have your pictures taken, be ready, be prepared for those big breaks. So I told a story in my article the other day from last year, actually, that when we had the rabbit year, my daughter, I gave her a new calendar, and she, on January 1st, she flipped to her month, which is August. And she's like, oh, yay, I'm an owl, because the owl was the animal on her calendar. And so I thought that's a wonderful way to look at any lunar new year. I am the animal of the year, even though I'm a rooster. I was born in the year of the rooster. A good technique or tip is to put your little animal statue next to the statue of the dragon. You're saying, like, I'm going to emulate you. I'm going to follow your lead. I'm going to sort of bow to you a little bit. I'm going to try to embody you. So even though I'm a rooster, and roosters are lucky, roosters are supposed to be lucky in the year of the dragon, as are the fire signs, but everyone's going to be lucky if they can embody the characteristics of the dragon. Take some risks, get out there, do your thing, mix it up, go to parties, do the thing that makes you a little uncomfortable that you may get a benefit from, and you probably will.
I love that. I love that. That's a great advice. So speaking of ego, do you want to talk a little bit about the election? People in the comments have been asking a lot about election stuff. And I know you and I both are kind of in the same boat. We're not going to say who we think is going to be president, because frankly, that's not information I get. I don't know about you. What can you say about the election though? Are you getting anything on that in terms of the dragon? We talked about ego.
I mentioned that fire signs were election year signs. So we have the rat. The rat is very crafty and very self-interested. People in the rat will always vote their self-interest, and they will take it to the end of the line for themselves, for their interest. They'll research. They'll, it's a smart, crafty sign. The legend of the Chinese zodiac is the rat jumped on the ox's back to get to the finish line to who was going to be first in the zodiac. And then it jumped off and ran in front of the ox and said, hey, I'm first, right? So that's the rat for you. So there's a lot of self-interest with the rat. It's kind of one of the more mellow of the fire signs. And then you've got the monkey on the other hand, which we all remember the 2016 election, right?
That was painful. That was painful.
That was the burn it all down. That monkey is, I don't know if you've ever been among wild monkeys, but I've been to Kenya, and you don't want to fart around with them. You leave your camera sitting there, they're going to grab it, they're going to play with it, and then they're going to drop it or throw it or something, right? They're going to do these destructive things. So you'll get that from the monkey. The monkey just is pure drama. Not that people born in the year of the monkey aren't great, wonderful people, but they always have a dramatic flair, right? And then the dragon, believe it or not, is somewhere in the middle, has some self-interest, knows how to burn it down. So here we are in the middle of those two extremes for this presidential election. But let me just get a drink of water real quick here.
So when you're saying the rat and the monkey, are you referring to two particular candidates or?
No, I'm not referring to candidates.
Okay.
I'm referring to years.
Okay, that makes sense.
Election years are fire sign years. They're even years. They're every 4 years. They're the leap years, right? So these are the years I'm talking about. We're in one of them right now because we have a February 29th coming up, and we have an election year. And so I want to see how's the dragon going to behave? How's this year going to behave? And I look at the chart of the US on election day. But first I want to tell you that we are in the midst of a Pluto return.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Tells you Pluto's not a planet. Sorry. There was a lot of weird circumstances around the astronomers who met and determined that. Let's not worry about that. Pluto is a very powerful planet or body or whatever you want to call it. It is the Shiva of the zodiac. So it does burn things down. It does destroy things. Destroy things. It does cause revolutions, right? And so we're in the midst of a Pluto return. And what that means is you and I have had a Saturn return. We've had our first Saturn return. And that was probably a little bit of a difficult time for you. I know it was for me around between the years of 20, 28 and 31. Generally, you have your Saturn return. Well, Pluto return is that exponentially, right? Humans do not have a Pluto return because it comes around every 248 years. And that's how old this country will be on July 4th. So we're in the midst of that right now. And that is basically, it's transform or die is what happens during a Pluto return. Don't have much experience.
And that's this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is the point where I send out kudos to my astrology mentor, Victoria Bearden, who'd be all over this. She's predicted every president right, except for that Trump, thing that happened. She didn't, get that right. But generally, she's able to say, even if she doesn't like a candidate, yeah, George W. Bush is going to win. She said that twice. And yes, he won twice, right? So she was very good at predictions. I am not as good at predictions. So I'm going to give you that disclaimer. That's not my forte. I'm more about personal relationships, people, individuals, right? But I look at this chart of the US on election day in the midst of its Pluto return, and I think about our national prayer, which is the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we aspire to be. It's not what we are, unfortunately. The liberty and the justice for all is not exactly what we are yet, but that's what we aspire to be. And given that and the Constitution, everything that this country says it wants to be, the best thing I can say about the election day is I don't think we're going to burn it all down.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to go to hell in a handbasket. And you can filter that through your political lens, what you want to happen. Some people say, well, that means that we're going to have a complete transformation. My argument is we've been having this transformation because the Pluto return has been going on for a little while. This is a slow moving transit. It'll be pretty exact on election day, just 2 degrees. Like it'll have already happened by election day because right now it's retrograde and it'll come back. Our Pluto of the US is at 27 degrees. It'll be at 29 degrees. So that's pretty right on point for election day. But what was I saying? The transformation has been happening. We've had people walking out of their jobs. We've had major strikes, people saying, I'm not going to work for this paltry money. We've had people standing up for their rights in a huge, huge way. So freedom, rights, all those values of America, I think, what happens on election day is not going to dramatically change whether we're in a democracy or
so what I'm hearing you say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing you say is that, freedom, liberty, the things that matter to us as Americans are going to be maintained no matter which name and I hate to say this, no matter which old white guy becomes elected.
Yeah, and you had mentioned something before about there being a little surprise before the election, and perhaps it's not the 2 white guys that we think, in that old white guys that we think being in that running. That very well could happen because of the Pluto thing becoming exact before election day. It wouldn't be exactly, I don't think it'll be necessarily an October surprise, but it could be an August, September surprise, as that's pretty spot on with Pluto. It could even be before then that we see something happen that has one or probably one, but maybe both candidates. I think that one of those candidates that we think it's going to be will be there, but there will be some surprises. There will be this horse race quality to it, which is what the media is really trying to.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what we like, right? As spectators, as people that spectate sports and reality shows and things like that, we like a good horse race. And so the media is determined to give us that horse race. And I think that's part of the dragon year too, the part of the fact that election years are held in these fiery years. But I look at that chart of election day and it's not a bad chart. And so it gives me hope that at least our democratic republic will be upheld and our democratic ideals will be upheld in election day. The stock market is going to go up and down, up and down. The economy is not going to crash. I can almost hang my hat on that, but it is going to look like it a couple of times, like it's going to, oh, wow. So we'll be in for a wild ride with the stock market. But I think what you generally see in a dragon year is growth and expansion. And I think we're going to see more of that.
Interesting. So you don't think there's going to be a recession this year?
I'm not calling it a recession. No, I think you're going to get a little bit of, there will be sectors, there will be businesses that will go down. There will be, I won't say sectors that go down, but there will be sectors that will be cutting back, that'll fall on hard times. There will be businesses that fail. Certainly you're going to see this think of one of the last dragon years, actually not the last one, but think of 2000, the year 2000 and Y2K.
I remember that.
It's like Y2K, the sky is falling. Oh my God, when that little computer glitch happens, everything is going to hell, right? What happened? Boop.
It was a nothing burger.
Some computers, I think it went back to the 1900s briefly, and then it just kind of self-corrected itself. So it was fine. And that's a little bit of what happens in a dragon year, I think, is that we, all the things that we worry about, most of them never happen.
Interesting. So do you think I'm going to ask you a question I get a lot. Tell me about, do you feel like this would be a good year to buy a house, or would you feel like next year might be a better deal? Or I know that's not your area, but
Okay,
I'm just kind of curious.
houses, that may be one of the markets that goes all over the place, right? Fire is not earth. Earth years are great years to buy a house.
Oh, okay.
If you have the money. Some of these earth years, the reason I used to think, oh yeah, I used to write, if you're a such and such, you'll do great in this year, until the ox year, which was supposed to be like my perfect year as a rooster. And that was the worst year ever, right? With the economy and just everything. It was a terrible year. That was 2009 I'm speaking about, I believe. Yes. And so it's really about being that year, right? And when you're in an earth year, yeah, you look at real estate. When you're in a fire year, you're more speculative. You're kind of like AI. Let's try to invest in AI. That's what my husband keeps saying. He's year of the dog. He's, so an ideas person. He's all about AI. So it's like, what technology, what kind of, there will be some spectacular startups, some spectacular gains in these new technologies, but there will also be some huge fails. And I think a couple of giants really going down to you.
I can picture one right now that I think is you're talking about.
Okay.
Poor Elon Musk.
Okay. I don't have specifics on that just yet, but
I might be wrong. No, I feel like he's getting some PR issues, and he's getting nailed to the wall. And he's brilliant. I think his technology is brilliant. But I can see what you're talking about is some big companies having a dumpster fire year.
Here's another thing I'm glad you mentioned Elon Musk, because your ego can blow you up. That is where the fire comes, right? You going nuts and not reading the room, not knowing who your people are, can blow you up. And will probably. That's a kind of a thing that we've seen in past dragon years, and seen just in general, is that you got to read the room. You got crazy beliefs. Okay, maybe write a book and send it out next year or something like that. Send it out in one of the crazy idea years, which would probably be, say, the dog year or something. But yeah, just kind of this year, present well, be on stage, be like the every man or every woman, right? Be for the majority, and rein in, kind of like bring your people in toward you. That's what I would say if you were a politician this year, or if you were head of a company. Know who your people are in the dragon year, because that's going to be your backbone. If you go out on your own, breathing fire and spewing crazy stuff, yeah, there's going to be a few issues. So we'll see where that hits. But
I mean, that's good advice for anyone. I love that.
It is in any year, right?
In any year.
I think, we're talking about how dragon isn't the most self-destructive or destructive sign, but a way that it can be is that,
so it's like the shadow.
These unhinged kind of rants and things like that. You're going to see a lot of blowback from that this year, I think.
Toilet tweets, not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much toilet tweets.
Truths.
Yeah, truths. Oh, that's funny.
Toilet truth.
I love
that somebody's going to write that book.
Yeah, somebody will actually. Maybe somebody listening today is going to write that book, and I would totally read it. I love what you said about, having your pitch, having your ideas. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what do people need to focus on to do? Because I'm hearing like, this is a great year if you're an entrepreneur, if you've got ideas, start to put them in writing. Tell me more about that.
If you've got big ideas, flesh those out, get those down on paper, rehearse your pitch, then write all these elevators in which you could make those pitches, right? Be in the right place at the right time. That's a lot of the synchronicity of the dragon year. So you get with your grand vision, and you have, say, 3 or 4 big goals that you want to attain this year. be ready, be pre-qualified if you do want to buy a house, right? Do the things you need to do, because there may be at some point, say, a run on the housing market where there'll be 4 or 5 people wanting to buy that house, or for a certain job there'll be quite a bit of competition. So if you have your ducks lined up, here we are talking in the rabbit year, and I've been telling people incessantly as they've been calling me is, get your room clean, get your office clean, as I sit here in just a terribly cluttered office. But I'm going to do it in the next 2 days, because I know the power of procrastination, positive procrastination. But yes, get your house clean, get your files in order, get your taxes ready to file, all that kind of boring stuff that you're not going to want to do in the dragon year. People will be hearing this while it's the dragon year. For us here in the US, the dragon year happens when the Aquarius new moon happens. Basically, it's a lunar new year. So we don't need to celebrate it when the moon is new in China. We need to celebrate it at here in California. It's 2:59 p.m. on the 9th of February.
So 2:59 p.m. Pacific. Okay, like that.
And you want to celebrate it. That's another way to have good luck in the year. The dragon, particularly as a vain, egotistical, charismatic figure, right? The only non-real animal in the Chinese zodiac, wants to be acknowledged. You have to give it its due. It's like, celebrate the year, because that'll help bring some luck. Wear new clothes. This is the first time I've worn this. I bought it a while ago, but it's still new. I had the tag on it. So wear new clothes. Have your house clean. I told you about putting little statuettes up there, but celebrate it. Basically the celebrations go on for a couple of weeks. So celebrate, particularly during the week of the Lunar New Year. And
I love that.
Give little kids those. I wish I had brought the envelope that my daughter just got from her aunt, but give little kids the little envelopes, the red envelopes with a couple dollars in them.
I love that. The ones you see at Chinatown
and the recipient. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, the ones, the little red envelopes you guys have probably seen at Chinatown.
Yes,
buy some of those. They're so
lion
pretty.
Dances. Find a restaurant where you can attend a lion dance. That's very auspicious as well.
I love that. That's such great advice. And that's so much fun. I always think the Lunar New Year is such a fun holiday. I mean, how many times you read envelopes? There's a business owned by a Japanese lady here in Ashland, Oregon, where I live. It's a boba tea place. I love it. But every year she gives out red envelopes if you buy something. It's so fun. So fun. So tell us what you told us what we should be doing. What would be a bad idea?
What would be a bad idea? I think it would be to be too timid. We had a whole year where that was given its due, right? We had a whole several years with all the pandemic and everything where introverts sort of got their due. And you know what I like? I didn't mention the element of the year. It's a wood element. So us introverts will still be okay. It's not fire. It doesn't mean we have to be on 24/7, but there will be times you have to be on a little bit more than you want to. So shying away, being too timid. Yeah, that's, you mentioned real estate. I would say let the angels trumpet if you're to buy a house. But you know what? If you're meant to buy a house, they do trumpet, right? If you're meant to make any big decision, you do hear that, because there's an element of magic with real estate. I always make sure, I always train my real estate agents, to have that magic. And
I love what you said about real estate, because I'm going to tell a quick story.
Yes.
You and I both know this person, Sanaya Rowan. She wrote this great book.
Creating Money, Creating.
It was my favorite book too. I can't believe I can't think of it. So we almost bought her house. We didn't know it was her house. We went and looked at a open house, and I'm like, this is the house. This is beautiful. And I couldn't stop sneezing. And this is the opposite of the angels trumpeting. And I'm like, why am I sneezing? I look outside, whole grounds are covered with roses, beautiful roses. And I'm like, I'm so allergic. Yeah. And I'm picturing digging out some, old ladies' prize roses and and giving them away and having her be mad at me. And I'm like, I'm going to live in a haunted house because I got rid of some old lady's prize roses, not knowing it was her house. So we passed, and the person who bought it loves them. I see them out there pruning them. So I'm so happy they got it. But I love that example because the angels were trumpeting all right. They were making a very different noise. It sounded a lot like sneezing.
When my husband and I bought this house that I'm sitting in now, we couldn't get in the front door, that we couldn't find the lockbox. So we went around to the backyard, and the backyard was just beautiful and expansive. And we looked into the canyon, and it was like, this is our house. We hadn't seen that the rooms were about 2 foot by 2 foot, right?
It just,
the bedrooms, you basically fall right onto the bed.
The sledgehammer will fix that.
But right, we were already sold on it before we had to see that we have terribly small bedrooms, but at least we had enough of them. So
I love that though, because that's great advice for somebody looking for it. Because people ask me about the housing thing a lot. Wait till you really feel it, until you really hear it.
You have to feel it, and you have to have the right agent that you feel can do some magic. And both times I've had an agent. The second time I had to train her, but I feel like I coached her enough, and she was able to do that. But yeah, there's this element of magic in real estate. So, it's not the best year for doing things like getting married and buying houses and all these kind of nesting behaviors. It's more that bold, independent, but you can do those things. You just have to really feel it in your heart, in a huge way. Like the universe has to trumpet and show you some signs. And I always like the idea of saying, okay, show me a dragonfly if, or show me a whatever. That might be a good symbol for this year, the dragonfly, right? Because it's an element. It's element of wood, and it's introspective. It's the wood element gives us a little bit more leeway to be our introverted selves and kind of go back and forth between the two worlds, but learn to walk between the two worlds is what I would say if you're introverted. But you do have to do public speaking this year.
Oh, I love it. I love it because and I will say personally, it has suddenly started to get easier, because it was always hard for me too. I mean, I was never afraid of it, but it was never my favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the energy has started to shift, and it has become easier, at least for me, and probably for a lot of people, because I'm seeing a lot more people just trying it. Is there, as we start to wrap this up, is there anything you want people to know that I didn't think to ask?
I can't think of it. I want you to all work for what it is that you want to see in the world this year, because your power is exponentially multiplied in the year of the dragon. You can make such a bigger impact by doing something that seems a little bit small, but be the dragon, be this cool thing, right? I wrote that in my article, that who wouldn't want to be a dragon, right? Get to fly around, you can shoot out fire whenever you want. So be that, own your charisma, own your voice, basically. And
I love that.
Raise your voice in ways that matter this year. Write your book. I'm pointing back at myself, right? Do that thing that you've been putting off. Get the accountability that you need. Get the coach,
Speaking of that, I'm going to give you a plug. You didn't ask for one, but I'm going to give you one, because I've always loved, I've gotten plenty of readings from you guys. Even though I do this, I still get readings, because there's things that I'm standing too close to the wall. I can't see it. So like, I'm feeling this, but I'm not sure if that's right. 100%. And also Jackleen is really good at businessy stuff. Like there's another reader I go to for more medical-y issues, but not that you're not good at that too, but like if I have a business question, Jackleen.
Always have a disclaimer around that, but people say,
fair enough.
For the most part, that I get it right.
Well, because also a lot of times, because you and I kind of have similar businesses, you've also had personal experience with a lot of things I ask about. So it's very helpful. It's very helpful in that respect, because I'll get practical information. But one of the things I always loved about you is that even if you had to tell me, and this did happen, that maybe the guy I was dating wasn't really a good match, it's always said in a way that was like really positive. Like, yes, you could probably do better, but there is somebody else. And I was like, it never left me feeling sad or upset, and I always, And it was always really good and very practical and very kind advice. And so I always feel like you were a good person to learn from in that respect. Is like whenever somebody asks me, should be dating Bob or Bill, and I can see that they're both gay or that they're both not a good match, right? How would I phrase that so that it's not, so the person's not like thinking.
Well, I mean, I had a client that was wanting to date George Clooney.
Oh, how'd that go?
So I looked at not well because he really wasn't man enough for her, you know, looking at her chart.
Good way of putting it.
It didn't, you know, it just didn't jive that she was going to need someone a little bit more alpha and a little bit more, you know, these qualities, and that he just didn't seem to fit the bill for her.
That was awesome.
That's how I told her that probably wasn't going to happen, but it was true. It wasn't a good match for her. If it was, I would have been like, okay, here's what you're going to do. Right.
Amala. Yes, Amala.
I can always look at two charts and know when, oh, no, you better run, right? I can never say this is the one, but I can see when you're on the right path. And that's one of the beauties of astrology, is being able to look at compatibility and see how many ways you can, you know, attain that or not.
I love it. And well, you also offer coaching services. Tell us about that.
Yes, I do coaching both with and without astrology. I recommend the astrology if you're into it, because we basically have you live by the moon. My philosophy is we've all thought about our sun signs. It's like throughout our life, we think, oh, I'm a Capricorn. I was born under a Capricorn sun, but I have a Virgo moon. I am a Virgo. It just fits me, even though that's a small change. They're both earth signs. Once I switched over, once I realized, I had this epiphany moment listening to, believe it or not, a podcast, and someone said the words, sun signs are patriarchal. And it just, odd words, but it just clicked in for me. Well, duh. We're supposed to be living by the moon, living by our moon and what the moon does. And if we do that, and we live as our true selves. So whatever your moon is and whatever house it's in and whatever aspects there are to that moon, wherever the north node of the moon is in your house, that's what we want to look at in your chart. That's what we want to look at. And that's where you want to live from.
I love it. I love it. Jackleen, how can people get a hold of you? I'm going to put first of all, I will say, I'm going to put all the links in the description. So if you guys don't write it down when she says it, it's fine.
JackleenHolton.com. And, you know, we were talking about booking by online. I don't have that yet. People can call me or email me. That's maybe probably what I'm being prodded to do in the year of the dragon, kind of come into this century. But I do, you know, you can get a hold of me through my website. Love
it. I will say, plug to online booking. I think it's the best thing.
Yes, I know. It's just the
it does take some setup. There's no question.
The setup and the getting over that hump, but this is the year to get over that hump with all the things that you've been scared to do. So I'm gonna take that up.
Love it.
Soon.
Well,
I do have a moon circle coming up for the year
Mm-hmm.
of the dragon, but I don't know what your air date is.
It'll be before that. I will make it happen, guys.
It'll be on the 8th, Thursday the 8th.
Okay. This is being recorded on 2/6. So you know, okay. In case some of your predictions come true before it airs, just having said right, the election.
I'm pushing my predictions off for a reason. They'll come up. They'll happen when they'll happen, but I don't know.
I love it. Well, and I actually think, you know, predictions are great, and obviously people ask me, and I, you know, have prediction advice, but sometimes I think just the energy of what's going on is helpful too, because how do you navigate that energy? You know, how do you use it? And I think this is what I think has been helpful is hearing how you use the year of the dragon energy to your advantage.
Yeah. No, that's what I'd rather do than actual predictions. I've done some soccer predictions that were right on, but with American football, I'm 50-50. So
I love it. Ooh, 50-50. Ooh, who's gonna win?
Well, the energy is definitely with the Chiefs, wouldn't you say? I think Taylor Swift's going to win.
You mean it's with Taylor Swift?
She's already won the Super Bowl.
She has already won the Super Bowl. I love Taylor. Oddly enough, I really do love. If you listen to the words, I mean, I'm sure Taylor Swift fans have already done this. If you listen to the words of her songs, they're really good. It's like, wow.
My daughter loves her. We watched the Eras tour. I was very impressed. So
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I think she's very thoughtful and introspective. And I'm like, I think, you know, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad you joined us. I hope this information was helpful. If you're interested in getting a hold of Jackleen, her links are in the description. She's amazing. I've used her services for years myself, so I'm just giving you a wholehearted endorsement. And I'm so glad I got to have her on the show. Thank you so much. So bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.